Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jane, for those of you who are new here, and for those who've been with me for a while, welcome back and thank you very much. If you watched last week's video, you know I said today I would talk to you a bit about my multiple sclerosis diagnosis, and what it's like to get diagnosed, some of the things that you go through to get to that process. For me, it took 3 or 4 years, but that's because the symptoms I was getting, they were coming and going. So it wasn't 3-4 years straight of having this problem. I would go for longer periods of time being normal. So while I chat with you, I'm actually just going to put a bit of makeup on because I'm going to meet my best friend Karen and part of our MS. It's an unofficial MS group that we go to on a Wednesday. That's what today is. That we've called Glee. No, we don't sing. No one wants to hear me sing, I promise you. It's just basically we get together once a week for coffee, usually in Asda Cafe. Today we're going to another cafe in town. I don't quite know why we're going to this different cafe, but I will find out, no doubt. And in case any of you are interested, I will link the products that I'm using somewhere. So as I said, I went 3-4 years having various different, well, I didn't know at the time, were symptoms, things that weren't right. As I talked about in the previous video, things like vertigo, numbness, desensitized skin, facial paralysis, things like that, which if you don't know and you're not a medical minded person, they don't make sense, and you don't necessarily link them and think that they're just one problem. I'd been to the doctors back and forwards for these various things I had going on, and eventually they decided to send me for an MRI, which, not to give you horror stories, I don't like them. I'm not claustrophobic. If I keep looking in this direction, by the way, that's where my mirror is. I never thought of myself as claustrophobic, but you are, I suppose if you're even vaguely claustrophobic, you won't enjoy MRIs. You are put in a very large tube. You're not allowed to move. Obviously, yes, you can breathe. Blink your eyes, things like that. But if you move too much, they will have to restart, and you don't want to be in there any longer than you need to be. They're very loud, very noisy. If you've ever seen one on any medical program or series or anything on telly, they really do sound like that. They really are that loud. So much so that they put headphones on you, big heavy duty headphones. They try and pipe music through for you as well. I tend to not be able to hear the music. And that's also how they'll talk to you if they need you to stop, or if you've moved and they need to ask you to start with starting again and things. And also you get a button to hold in your hand that if you need to stop, press that and they will bring you out immediately. I've had to do that once because I had bad stomach at the time and I needed the toilet. But yes, so I had an MRI, and my doctor called me in probably about a week after because you don't get the results on the day. It was about a week later, but I'll be honest with you, when I've had MRIs, sometimes it's weeks before you can before you get any news. But yeah, it was about a week later, he called me into the office, and my mum came with me. I would recommend taking someone with you. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold at the minute, in case you hadn't noticed. Just for support more than anything. For whatever the news is going to be. He started talking to me, and a lot of what he was saying meant nothing to me. I didn't really understand it. I was still thinking, oh my God, he's going to tell me I'm a hypochondriac, that there's nothing wrong. But he just said that all the, he started talking about scarring on my brain, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm dying. And there's no easy way for them to explain it or to get it out quickly enough for you not to have that initial panic set in. And that's whether you have a lumbar puncture, or I've never had a lumbar puncture, so I can't talk about that. I will speak to some of my friends today and see if any of them have had it, and then I can get a little bit of news from them. But yeah, so he said that the scarring in a myelin sheath, again, at the time, meant nothing to me, which was basically showing all the signs of it being multiple sclerosis. I'd never heard of it before. But my mum started crying straight away, and all I felt was relief. I felt relief to know that there actually was something wrong with me. That I wasn't just being a hypochondriac, or I'd gone crazy, or whatever I was thinking. Sorry, that's the wrong term for me to say, but that's how I felt. And my mum was distraught. She was mortified. And I'm thinking, does this mean I'm dying? You know, I knew nothing. He talked to me a bit, but in all honesty, you can't take things in at that point. I think at that point, there's no information that you're going to hold. My mum took leaflets from him and obviously listened a bit more. I will ask her, and I'll see if I can insert it in this video as well, what she remembers of me getting diagnosed. But for me, it was, I just felt immense relief. And we left the doctor's office, and she said, oh, come on, we'll go home. And I said, no, I've got to go to work. I worked in the bar in the local leisure centre, bar cafe. I was the assistant manager. I was like, no, I've got to go to work. And she's like, after that, you're going to work? I was like, yeah. Because again, I knew nothing, and I just felt relief. So I got to work. At this stage, it was probably about 9:30, 9:45 in the morning. And I was just getting on with my job. I didn't talk to anyone about it because it didn't mean anything to me at the time. And at around lunchtime, my brother turned up, which was really, really weird. And my boss, Billy, said, right, Jane, I've spoken to your mum. So my mum had obviously rang. Your brother's here to take you home. And I'm thinking, I'm not even halfway through the day yet. So what's going on? And I got home, and there were a lot of very close family friends there. All the house was just full of people. And at that stage, I started to think, oh my God, am I dying? What do they know that I don't? And they knew a lot more than I did, but no, I wasn't dying. They were there for moral support, for me, for my family. They'd kind of gone through the journey with me of years of having these very, very weird things go wrong with me, that nobody really knew anything what could be causing it. so yeah, we had a house full of people, and everyone, it ended up being a little bit of a party because I wanted to celebrate the fact that it wasn't a terminal illness, I wasn't dying, and that I finally knew what was wrong with me, and then potentially knew where to go from there. So for me, my diagnosis was actually a happy time. I know that's, and I'm sorry if that really upsets other people, but that's how it felt for me, because I really thought I was becoming a hypochondriac, because it was like it's something different every week and none of them kind of made sense or linked together. And, you know, why is one side of my face paralyzed? And then the next week, why is my foot numb? Why am I having dizzy spells? Why can't I see straight? I was young, I was in my early 20s, and you think you're invincible then. So for me, it was a relief to know finally that there was a name to what was wrong with me, and that I could take it from there and look into the options and things like that. But that's a whole other story, because from that point, age 23, I kind of got lost in the system. I moved from up Northumberland down to Hampshire, so it's a big move. But obviously your medical records get moved, and I didn't see another neurologist for 20 plus years. I'm not going to go into that in this video. I've probably talked enough for you. But yes, that'll be sort of the next story, is I suppose how I got lost in the system. So thanks for watching again. I hope this is useful to people. I hope it takes away some of the smoke and daggers around it. Yeah, I don't enjoy MRIs, but I go and have them quite regularly, because they, for me, are the way to see any new lesions that, you know, and things like that. And again, we will talk about lesions, myelin sheath, get a little bit more techie, but I'm not a doctor. I can only tell you my opinion and what I know in my words. So yeah, hopefully this will, you know, just sort of ease people in to know that getting diagnosed, for some people, it's good news. I know, I'm sorry that sounds wrong. It's good news into what the worst things you're thinking of, because it's not one of the worst things. It really isn't, I can promise you that. So yeah, hopefully you'll join me again next time, and I will try and, it may be just a voiceover from me, because I don't know if anyone else in the MS group will be happy doing actually a video with me, but I'll have a chat with them today and see if I can find out some more diagnosis stories for you. And we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye. Hi, it's me again. Just quickly, I have been to my MS group, and I've just spoken to a few of them, so I will just give you some rundowns of some of my friends' diagnosis. So Karen was diagnosed when she was about 30. She had her symptoms really started in October, and she was at the doctor's literally every single week with a new symptom. Her GP recommended going private. She did have private medical insurance with her work, so that she was quite lucky there. She had an MRI the following week and something called evoked potentials, which I hadn't heard of, but it's where you had sort of electrodes clipped in certain places on your body to see the reaction in your nerves. So she had that. I'm just trying to read my writing here, which is never a good plan. She had a lumbar puncture, which is basically where they take some of your spinal fluid out to test. And by December, she had really bad vision. She went blind in one eye. In December, she had vision and balance issues. She ended up in hospital on steroids, and then in February she went blind in one eye and was diagnosed with MS in March. My friend Mark, he was 43 when he was diagnosed. His doctor, because he had really bad walking issues, thought he had, and I don't know the name of this, but it's basically an illness to do with alcohol. And he was put on vitamin B injections, and he probably had symptoms for 3 years before he was diagnosed. And when he got diagnosed, he laughed. He had already joined the local MS group because his doctor had mentioned that it could well be multiple sclerosis. So he'd already joined the group before diagnosed. My friend Karen, who I've just talked about, she was same as me. She was relieved when she was diagnosed that she actually finally knew what was wrong with her. Then we have Brian, who he probably had symptoms for 9 years before he was diagnosed, and he had an MRI, lumbar puncture, and the evoked potentials, which is, but he'd already guessed what was wrong with him, and he was 42. Tracy was 26, 27 when she was diagnosed. She had symptoms for about 6 months to a year, ended up in hospital for a couple of weeks. She had 3 lumbar punctures and 2 MRIs, and she actually cried when she was diagnosed. Kate was 37 when she was diagnosed. Her symptoms started when she was about 30. She ended up falling down the stairs because half of her body was paralysed, and she had optic neurosis, so eye problems. She had an MRI and a lumbar puncture, and was then diagnosed. And Sally was 34. She started symptoms in May and was diagnosed the following February with evoked potentials and an MRI. So it's just to let you know that everyone is different. And they've all suggested that we start talking on another video about symptoms and how different we all are. So that's just a little bit of insight, just so you can see that everybody is different and everyone goes through different things. But it does, every single one of us ended up having an MRI to get diagnosed, but not everyone had lumbar punctures or these evoked potentials. As I said, I hadn't heard of those, but that tests how strong a signal your nerves are getting, I believe. So there you go. See you next time.